Delacroix protected him. Gotti did Delacroix's bidding, 100% loyal to Delacroix to the end.
Gotti's rise to glory got a big boost in 1973 after an Irish thug kidnapped and then murdered the nephew of the aging boss, Carlo Gambino.
Carlo Gambino had never received such an instance of utter disrespect in his life. Kill the bastard.
Gotti was chosen to rub out the culprit, James McBratney. When Gotti was arrested, he scored big points in the Gambino family by avoiding what would have been a highly publicized trial and accepting a plea bargain. After spending 3 years in prison, Gotti returned to a crime family straining to get along under the new leadership of Paul Castellano. In the summer of 1976, John Gotti was formally sworn into the Mafia. While Gotti had now control over his own crew, he soon began to lose control of himself. The first sign was his gambling habit.
We have a bug in the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Ozone Park. And he's a degenerate gambler, Gotti. He would bet on 2 cockroaches running up the wall. That's how bad he was. He's in the club all by himself Sunday evening, and he gets the result of the baseball games. He lost every one of them. He blew $20,000 plus the VIG. The VIG is the interest, right? He's all alone. What do you think his reaction was to losing $20,000? God is a blankety-blank fag. That's it. We're rolling on the floor laughing.
Gotti became notorious for his temper tantrums.
I walk up the street and I stop in at the club. And there was John. He was sitting at the table. While we're talking, in walks a guy, one of his people, with his hands outstretched, and he has a silver leisure suit in his hands. And as he's walking toward the table, John says, "What is that?" He says, "John, that's the leisure suit you told me to get you, the gray one that you told me to get you." He says, "Is that gray? Are you at a kill you and this and that?"
Like nearly every other young wise guy, Gotti had a round of girlfriends who were easily impressed with his money.
I know a woman who dated John, who John would take her out, and he said to her, you know, you need anything? Can I, you know, you want you to go shopping? And she says, no. He says, come on, go shopping. He takes out a wad of bills out of his pocket and gives her the whole bunch of money out of his pocket. And she says, John, that's all the money you have in your pocket. And he says, I got 2 pockets.
There was a defining moment in Gotti's family life. In March 1980, just a few blocks from Gotti's home in Queens, his 12-year-old son, Frankie, riding a mini bike, darted out from behind a dumpster and into the path of a car driven by a neighbor, John Favara. The boy was killed. The police ruled it an accident.
One of the factors that apparently or allegedly annoyed Victoria Gotti was that he never really came and apologized. But he had been warned by others not to apologize. So I think Favara was in the middle of a very untenable situation, unfortunately, and the best advice to him would have been to get out of town very quickly. He had been planning to leave and had just made arrangements to buy a house, but he didn't move quick enough.
Just 2 days before the neighbor was set to move, 3 men beat him and threw him into a van as he was leaving work. He was never seen again. At the time, John and Vicky Gotti were conveniently out of town. No one was ever charged. The John Gotti who took over the Gambino family 5 years after that incident soon became a media superstar and made the mistake of believing his own press clippings. In January 1986, just a month after John Gotti became boss, he made it clear to his associates that he had big plans for the Gambino crime family. He did not know the FBI was listening to every boast. And for a while, it seemed that Gotti really was invincible. No matter what charge was thrown at him, it wouldn't stick. He became known as the Teflon Don. The first 2 trials he faced were for racketeering and assault. In the assault case, prosecutors said Gotti beat up this man named Romuald Pisiak, a refrigerator repairman, and robbed him of $300 following a traffic dispute. John was able to control his emotions in the courtroom, but at home, his wife Vicky was running out of patience, and she let John know it over the phone.
She says, "You haven't been home in 3 weeks. I'm leaving. I don't want any part of this life anymore. When are you coming home?" He said, "Let me tell you something. I'm on trial for this one here. If I beat this, I go on trial for the one in Brooklyn. If I beat both of them, I'll be home in 3 days. If I lose, I'll be home in 35 years. Screw you," and he hangs up the phone.
Winning the assault case was a cinch. As soon as the repairman began reading news reports that the man he was accusing was the new boss of the Gambino crime family, he developed a sudden case of amnesia and could no longer remember who beat him up. The case was dropped. Next came the racketeering case. The government brought in convicted killers and drug dealers who had bargained lighter sentences in exchange for ratting on Gotti. John's attorney, Bruce Cutler, ripped into the credibility of the witnesses. The jury found Gotti not guilty.